Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 13 based on novel. So let's start. The space in the sky has split apart, before a large blood-red palm extended forth, and shattered the spear. A furious cry resounded over the place. That voice contained an icy cold murderous desire, causing the temperature of the area to fall. Heaven Dragon Demon Commander? Chen Tong's group were a little pale when they saw that large hand. Promptly, they clenched their teeth. None of them had expected that the extremely famous, great demon commander of the Beast War region, would actually attack. This was a frightening existence whom even Xu Song was extremely terrified of. Although the peak of the perfect profound death stage was only one step away from the samsara stage, the gap between the two was huge and it was difficult to breach. However, Lin Dong's face appeared relatively calm, compared to their drastic change in expressions. He lifted his head to look at the space, which had split apart. With a smile, he said, "Are you finally going to show yourself?" From his tone, it seems like Lin Dong was already aware that the Blood Dragon Demon Commander was observing this place. Dark red light gathered within the spatial crack. The huge hand disappeared and a dark red light figure slowly appeared. Finally, it appeared in front of the countless people in this deep lightning mountain. This figure had dark red long hair and his body was tall and strong. There was an authoritative aura that could not be hidden in his eyebrows. A dragon symbol lingered over his brow, giving him a domineering look. This person was clearly one of the three renowned great demon commanders in Beast War region, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. The Yuan power in the surroundings churned intensely the moment the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander appeared. There was an extremely mysterious and indescribable aura vaguely lingering over it. That aura gave off the smell of the samsara stage, causing one to feel terrified. He is indeed at the samsara stage. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. Even Lin Dong felt that an opponent of this level was extremely troublesome to deal with. The reason why he could seal the Yimo General back at the Flame Divine Hall was because there were many experts from the Flame Divine Hall and Tang Xinlian supporting him. However, he was all by himself now. Although his strength had increased greatly, it was still an extremely difficult feat for him to beat a samsara stage super expert all by himself. The entire deep lightning mountain became completely silent under the pressure from that dark red light. In fact, many experts from the deep lightning mountain had pale faces. Clearly, they were quite afraid of this Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander completely ignored their many pair of frightened eyes. He merely lowered his head slowly. Then, his ferocious beast-like eyes contained an icy cold evil aura, as he stared at the skinny figure below. Lin Dong also lifted his head and stared back at him. That young man's face contained an extremely calm expression that seemed at odds with his age. Following the increase in his strength, Lin Dong was no longer as frightened and helpless when facing an expert of this level, like he did back at the unique Devil City. Two pairs of eyes exchanged glances in the midair. It seemed as though the air itself had stilled. The atmosphere was so pressurizing and frightening. Boom! The mountain below suddenly cracked while the atmosphere became tense. Then, two figures flew out miserably. After which, they appeared in midair. They were the two commanders from the Blood Dragon Hall, who were sent flying by Lin Dong earlier. Fury and embarrassment flashed across their eyes when they appeared and saw the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. They, two perfect profound death stage experts, were reduced into such a miserable state in the hands of this initial profound death stage young man. This caused them to feel ashamed. What an interesting little fellow. Other than the other two great demon commander, you are the first person in the Beast War region who dares to disrespect my Blood Dragon Hall. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander spoke in a faint voice which finally broke the pressuring atmosphere. "So Demon Commander, you are too kind." Lin Dong smiled. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's sharp eyes stared at Lin Dong. His eyes rippled slightly as he said, "You do not wish to give my Blood Dragon Hall the yearly tribute. I did not impose additional conditions on you." Back then, Xu Song was also offered the same deal. Xu Song is Xu Song. Lin Dong cupped his hands together towards the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. He was neither afraid nor was he arrogant. I have already said that the Blood Dragon Hall is still the overlord of this region. My Deep Thunder Mountain will not compete with you. However, with regards to the tributes, it is not within my acceptable limits. Lin Dong had walked step by step to this point after so many years. The opponents whom he had met were becoming increasingly strong. However, someone who could get him to submit and pay tribute has yet to appear. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander might be powerful, but he was far from reaching this level. As Chen Tong and the rest stared at Lin Dong, who actually dared to provoke the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, cold sweat appeared over their hearts. There was not a single person present who could remain fearless in the face of a Samsara stage super expert. However, deep inside this young man, it seems like he did not know what fear was. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander narrowed his eyes as the space around him fluctuated. There seemed to be a faint dragon roar spreading from him, causing the skin of many surrounding experts to turn numb. The silence continued in the midair for a moment. Finally, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander smiled faintly. He said, "It is fine if you do not wish to pay tributes or hand over the divine object." The two commanders from the Blood Dragon Hall were startled upon hearing this. Just as they were about to speak, they saw the playful expression in the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's eyes and quickly swallowed their words. Chen Tong and the rest were startled. It was likely that they were surprised that it was so easy to negotiate with the overbearing Heaven Dragon Demon Commander in the Beast War region. However, Lin Dong lifted his brow instead of feeling joyous like they did. His eyes looked towards the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and laughed. "May I know what Sir Demon Commander wants?" "Ha ha, how smart." The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander laughed. There was some heat surging from deep within his eyes. He pointed towards Lin Dong. "I want that top dragon tribe martial arts that you practice. If you hand that martial arts over to me, I will use 2 divine objects to exchange for it. What do you say?" This Heaven Dragon Demon Commander actually had his eyes on Lin Dong's green heaven materialized dragon skill. This was not surprising. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander was related to the dragon tribe and there was dragon blood in his body. Hence, it was naturally possible for him to comprehend some of the mysteries of the green heaven materialized dragon skill. The pure dragon might from Lin Dong's body was clearly a result of this martial arts. If he could obtain it, not only would he be able to temper his body, but even his bloodline would gradually become purer. This object was clearly extremely alluring to him. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes before a smile quickly appeared on the corner of his lips. However, this smile was chilly. He was aware that this Heaven Dragon Demon Commander was after something else, but he did not expect that the latter to have such wild ambitions. To think that he was actually after the green heaven materialized dragon skill. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander in the sky wore a faint smile as he looked at Lin Dong. Greed and ferocity gathered deep within his eyes. There seemed to be a monstrous-like yuan power fluctuation being formed behind him. It appeared like an ocean when looked from afar. An extremely pressurizing assault spread over the deep lightning mountain. "If you want to obtain this martial arts?" Lin Dong looked at the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. He smiled. "I'm afraid that you are unqualified to receive it. I can agree to any conditions of yours as long as you hand me that martial arts." The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander lowered his head to look at the young man below. The space behind him was extremely distorted and appeared unusually frightening. "I am aware that you are quite skilled. Having such combat ability when you are only at the initial profound death stage, it seems like even the word genius cannot adequately describe you. However, I have killed many geniuses over the years. Trust me, the current you lacks the qualifications to oppose me. I can give you an opportunity to keep growing. The only condition is that you must hand me that martial art." Majestic yuan power gathered behind the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. It seemed to have turned into a huge dragon, which stretched on endlessly. The dragon had 6 wings and it blotted out the sun, causing the sky to turn dim. The entire sky trembled as it was being enveloped by this terrifying pressure. Lin Dong lifted his head. His dark black eyes looked at the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, who had a frightening aura. The robes over his body flapped. A long while later, he finally parted his mouth and smiled. It is indeed extremely difficult to deal with a samsara stage expert. However, if you really wish to deal with me, you should use your actual body. Such tricks are useless against me. The eyes of the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander in the sky quickly became sharp. This is not his actual body. Chen Tong and the rest were startled. Immediately, he looked towards the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander in the sky, who had a frightening aura. Their hearts quivered slightly. Just a mere demonic spirit avatar was already this powerful. Wouldn't his actual body be even stronger? Was an expert at the samsara stage really this strong? What a sharp-eyed little fellow. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander stared at Lin Dong with sharp eyes. A moment later, he smiled faintly. However, once you end up meeting my true body, it is likely that you will not even have the opportunity to regret. I do not wish for today's situation to develop until that stage. Killing a genius is ultimately an extremely regretful deed. So Demon Commander, you should leave as soon as possible. I have already given you my answer. Lin Dong turned around. His feet paused as he turned his head. Both his eyes were like a pair of deep abyss as he stared at the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. Believe me, you cannot handle this martial arts. Hence, you should stop finding trouble for yourself. The Green Heaven materialized dragon skill was passed to him by Qing Shi. Even within the dragon tribe, there was hardly anyone who possessed the qualifications to practice it. This Heaven Dragon Demon Commander was not considered as a pure member of the dragon tribe. Hence, he was indeed extremely far from being qualified from practicing the Green Heaven materialized dragon skill. Chen Tong's group and the two commanders from the Blood Dragon Hall were momentarily stunned. Their expressions were a little strange. The former secretly thought that their great lord was indeed as overbearing as he always was. The latter smiled coldly as he secretly thought that this brat really did not know what was good for him. There has never been a person from the Beast War region who managed to survive after provoking the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. A rash individual who don't listen to kind words. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander was also startled. He involuntarily laughed. However, his laughter appeared quite ferocious. Subsequently, he extended his large hand and suddenly clenched it. Since this is the case, I can only use another method. Bang! The huge six-wings flying dragon, which stretched on endlessly in the sky, suddenly opened its blood-red large eyes at this moment. A monstrous and ferocious aura spread across the place. A monstrous evil aura swept over the sky. The huge, seemingly endless, six-winged flying dragon flapped its large wings. Then, it tore through the sky, in front of many pairs of eyes, and ruthlessly shot towards Lin Dong below in a frightening manner. The assault by the flying dragon pressured the air until it exploded. The mountain below emitted a bang and turned into dust under this pressure. The experts of Deep Lightning Mountain had a drastic change in expression. They looked as though they were about to face a great enemy. Lin Dong lifted his head at this moment. His eyes were icy cold as he stared at that frightening attack. Soon after, bright green light swept out from within his body. 100 green dragon light symbols whistled out from his body at the same time. Many dragon roars resounded in the sky in an earth-shaking fashion. Such pure dragon might. I want that martial arts even more than before. The greed in the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's eyes grew when he sensed the pressure contained within the dragon roar. I'm afraid that you don't have the ability to do so. Lin Dong laughed coldly. 100 green dragon light symbols roared towards the sky in unison. The roar was like thunder that appeared out from nowhere, causing the entire mountain forest to tremble. Bang! Six-winged flying dragon roared. However, just as Lin Dong was about to attack, his heart was suddenly jolted. Following which, he heard an earth-shaking tiger roar that contained a rich, brutal, murderous intent, resounding in the sky above Deep Lightning Mountain like a furious thunder. Chen Tong and the other experts hurriedly turned their heads to look at the deepest part of Deep Lightning Mountain. One could see a dense black light spreading in the sky before it gathered with lightning-like speed. An unusually large black tiger suddenly pounced forward. The tiger stepped forward and tore through the sky. In a flash, it ruthlessly collided against the enormous body of the six-winged flying dragon. Boom! A frightening loud sound spread across the sky. Waves of frightening assault waves swept over the sky like a storm, flattening the forest below. Commander Yang has left his secluded cultivation. Those experts from Deep Lightning Mountain rejoiced upon seeing this scene. Where did this bastard come from? How dare you behave atrociously on my Deep Lightning Mountain? A violent roar was transmitted from deep within Deep Lightning Mountain. Subsequent, everyone saw a black light rapidly rushing over from afar. It appeared in the sky in the blink of an eye. The person who appeared was Little Flame, who had been cultivating in seclusion for a month. At this moment, the latter's original metal tower-like body seemed even sturdier, and there were many black tiger stripes on his face. In fact, the scars he had from before had all vanished. However, the brutal aura from his brow became even denser, and it caused one to quiver. Moreover, Little Flame's current aura had also surged tremendously. Clearly, his aura had reached the perfect profound death stage. Meanwhile, his tiger eyes were filled with ferociousness as he surveyed his surroundings. What an extraordinary fearsome tiger! The two Blood Dragon Hall's commander looked at Little Flame, who was covered by a violent aura, before their expressions changed. Although they were also at the perfect profound death stage, it was possible for them to detect a rich dangerous scent from the latter's body. This aura, you are actually from the Heavenly Devil Tiger tribe. A surprise flashed across the eyes of the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. He looked at the pressuring aura of Little Flame in the sky and asked. Little Flame completely ignored him. There was a dense murderous desire flashing across his eyes as he stared at the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. He spoke in a dark voice, Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. I do not care about the fact that Shusong used to submit to you. From today onwards, the chief of this Deep Lightning Mountain is no longer Shusong. Therefore, you should not try to bring up those things that belong to the past. Ha, what an impressive new demon commander. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander laughed. A fury was present in his laughter. He did not expect that these two in front of him would be so troublesome to deal with. However, do you really think that I cannot handle the both of you? The eyes of the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander suddenly turned ferocious. He was originally extremely overbearing to begin with. However, he was currently being rejected again and again. If his actual body had arrived today, it was likely that he would not have been able to contain the murderous intent in his heart, and would have exterminated the entire Deep Lightning Mountain. The both of us and our Deep Lightning Mountain will fight with you till the end if you insist on starting one. However, I'm afraid that you will have to be prepared to break some teeth. Little Flame's tone was ferocious. His ruthless aura was stronger than the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. So Demon Commander, even if your Blood Dragon Hall can swallow my Deep Lightning Mountain, you will definitely suffer severe losses. At that time, perhaps you will have to be extra wary of the two other great demon commanders in the Beast War region. Lin Dong crossed his hands in front of his chest. 100 green dragon light images lingered around him. At the same time, a ripple that must not be underestimated was emitted. His dark black eyes were calm and indifferent as he stared at the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. The expression of the Heaven Demon Dragon Commander finally changed upon hearing those words. He was not afraid of the Lin Dong duo, but he was deeply wary of the two other great demon commanders in the Beast War region. After all, they were as powerful as him. Moreover, they were eyeing his Blood Dragon Hall with malicious intent. If his Blood Dragon Hall was to suffer serious damage, they might indeed make a move on him. 3 sharp pairs of eyes crossed each other in the sky. Their bodies were tensed. A cautiousness was gathering under frightening hidden current. When Chen Tong's group saw this scene, they quietly laughed bitterly. Since Little Flame had said those words, all they could do was to obey him. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander might be extremely troublesome to deal with, but these two esteemed lords from their Deep Lightning Mountain were also no pushovers. In fact, they typically acted in a valiant fashion, bringing their subordinates some pride as well. Furthermore, they were also keenly aware that Lin Dong and Little Flame combined possessed a strong fighting strength. Though the Blood Dragon Hall might be powerful, it was likely not going to be an easy task for them to swallow their deep lightning mountain. The face-off in the sky continued for a long time. Finally, the ferocity flickering within the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's eyes gradually diminished. It's no wonder Xu Zhong perished in your hands. The both of you are indeed quite capable, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander said. You are too kind. Lin Dong smilingly replied. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander stared at Lin Dong and Little Flame. A cold smile appeared on his face. However, it is too early for you to be celebrating now. I, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, will not give up so easily. My actual body is in cultivation seclusion at the moment. The both of you can act as insolently as you want during this period of time. 1 month later, before the ancient divine item treasury opens, I will let the both of you know how terrifying a Samsara stage expert is. Hopefully, when that time comes, you can still act so tough. Lin Dong and Little Flame narrowed their eyes after hearing the threat contained in the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander's words. A fierce glow flashed deep in their eyes. Today, I will let your deep lightning mountain off. Try your best to enjoy the benefits of being a demon commander for this 1 month. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander smiled faintly. He waved his sleeve before the space behind him was split apart. After which, he turned and left. The two commanders from the Blood Dragon Hall hurriedly followed. Both of you will definitely die 1 month later. A densely cold murderous voice slowly reverberated across the sky of Deep Lightning Mountain after the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio left. That bastard. Little Flame looked at the spot where the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander disappeared. He clenched both of his hands tightly while a murderous desire filled his eyes. Lin Dong's expression continued to remain calm while his 10 long fingers were crossed together. A moment later, he knitted his brow. It was indeed extremely troublesome to fight head-on with a powerful Samsara stage expert. However, at this point, there was no turning back. Since they could not run from it, all they could do was fight it out with that fellow 1 month later. This was a realm that was covered in black light. Everything was dark. However, there was an ocean-like majestic energy surging within. A vague, extremely frightening pressure was scattering from deep within the darkness. This place remained quiet for a long time. Suddenly, it rippled slightly before an extremely weak golden light appeared. This golden light flashed. Subsequently, it shot towards the deep parts of the space. However, it appeared as though its energy was completely exhausted halfway through and it turned completely illusory. A weak sonic wave was emitted as the golden light turned illusory. After this sonic wave spread, some commotion seemed to appear deep within the dark space. A moment later, the monstrous energy that filled the space seemed to whisk forth like an ocean. 10,000 feet large bat wings blotted out the sun and spread. Those bat wings were covered with some extremely obscure and mysterious purple golden light. A sharp cold glint that could tear through the space appeared at the edges of the bat wings. That stern and fierce aura, which could devour the world, spread across this place in an instant. This ripple. Deep in the darkness where a pair of bat wings were present, there were actually 2 somewhat dark golden large eyes that were slowly being opened. Those huge eyes were filled with frightening ferocity. The pair of dark golden large eyes looked towards the spot where the sonic wave had disappeared. Those 10,000 feet large bat wings flapped and the scattered sonic wave actually turned into fragments, which returned a little at a time. That giant creature in the darkness collected the fragmented sonic wave. A moment later, those huge dark golden eyes suddenly widened. Rarely seen emotions surged within those eyes, covering even the tyrannical aura that it had been born with. They are still alive, huh? I knew that the brothers of Grandpa Martin will not die so easily. After all, we agreed to charge back to the Eastern Xian region together. Wait a little longer. I will come and look for you once I exit my cultivation seclusion. That foolish tiger, and, big brother, us 3 brothers, will finally be reunited. The voice gradually weakened within the space. The originally violent energy also gradually calmed. Those dark golden large eyes were once again slowly shut. Finally, they disappeared deep into the realm. Deep Lightning Mountain's crisis was finally dispelled after the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander weighed his options and chose to temporarily withdraw in the face of Lin Dong's and Little Flame's powerful resistance. However, the both of them were clearly aware that this matter was not over. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander had only chosen to withdraw because his true body was unable to come. However, once he had the time, his fury would definitely sweep over in a frightening manner like heavenly lightning. However, the Lin Dong duo did not have any good solutions to this problem. They were unwilling to submit to the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, and this would definitely result in a conflict between both parties. Moreover, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander actually dared to try and snatch Lin Dong's green heaven materialized dragon skill. This made it impossible to resolve the friction between them. Since it was impossible to resolve, they could only rely on the most primitive method to settle the matter. The fist was king. A samsara stage expert was a peak existence in this world, and anyone with such strength would definitely be a titan no matter the location. In the Eastern Xian region, the sect master of a super sect only had such strength. Even though Lin Dong and Little Flame were much stronger than before, it was still rather troublesome for them to fight such an existence. Although they no longer felt as afraid as back then, it was still a considerably huge problem. Of course, given the Lin Dong duo's characters, they would not even think of hiding when trouble came looking for them. A samsara stage expert was indeed troublesome. However, it had not reached the level where the both of them would be forced to flee miserably. All they could do now was to see what kind of tricks the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander was going to pull. Peace gradually returned to Deep Lightning Mountain. However, there was a tenseness under its relaxed surface. After all, everyone knew that there was conflict between Deep Lightning Mountain and Blood Dragon Hall. The latter was clearly a titan that was far stronger than the former. Hence, many people believed that this conflict was irrational. After all, even Xu Song from back then could only choose to submit in the face of the powerful Blood Dragon Hall. Yet, the new demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain had offended Blood Dragon Hall before his position had even been stabilized. Such actions were unbelievably foolish in many people's eyes. However, regardless of the rumors that spread in the outside world, Deep Lightning Mountain continued to remain calm. Surprisingly, the Blood Dragon Hall that had suffered a loss and retreated made no attempts to retaliate during the subsequent period of time. This unusual silence caused many to be stunned. Only those with strong information networks were aware that the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander of Blood Dragon Hall was in seclusion. Hence, he did not have the time to find trouble with Deep Lightning Mountain. Some of those gloating individuals felt rather regretful towards this, however, they quickly laughed coldly. Everyone was clearly aware that this so-called peace would not last for long. In another month, the ancient divine item treasury would open. At that time, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander will definitely leave his seclusion and Deep Lightning Mountain's luck will also run out. What that time came, the owner of Deep Lightning Mountain would perhaps be changed again. It is rumored that the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander is in seclusion, no wonder only a demon spiritual body came that day. Little Flame looked towards Lin Dong and spoke with a frown after hearing the report by his subordinate in a hall within Deep Lightning Mountain. Lin Dong nodded. He looked towards the worried faces of Chen Tong's group below and smiled. Everyone, just do what you usually do. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander might be troublesome to deal with, but destroying our Deep Lightning Mountain is not an easy task either. The many experts from Deep Lightning Mountain looked at the smiling young face of Lin Dong. It seemed that the latter did not understand the meaning of fear even in the face of such a frightening opponent like the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. Ha ha, since Lord Lin Dong has put it this way, there is nothing for us to worry about. Lord Lin Dong's ability far exceeds the estimations of people like us. Chen Tong glanced at the others and smilingly said. The others nodded after hearing this. In their eyes, this ever-smiling young man was unfathomable. Perhaps, he did possess the confidence to deal with the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander. Everyone in the hall made their reports before cupping their hands together and withdrawing. Big brother, what should we do? The reason that Heaven Dragon Demon Commander is in seclusion is likely related to the divine item treasury. Will we still be going there? Little Flame looked towards Lin Dong and inquired after the hall became empty. Why not? Lin Dong chuckled. Although he was not too interested in those ordinary divine objects within the divine item treasury, he was extremely interested in the treasury itself. It was named a mysterious divine palace. This divine item was ranked 10th on the ancient divine object ranking and was clearly an extraordinary item. It would definitely become the divine object with the highest battle power in Lin Dong's hands if he could get hold of it. There are 3 great demon commanders in this beast war region. Each of them has some grudges with the other 2, hence when we assemble in front of the divine item treasury, that Heaven Dragon demon commander will not dare to really fight it out with us. Otherwise, the other 2 great demon commander will take advantage of the situation. Lin Dong paused at this point. Moreover, even if he really fights us, the Sky-Devouring Corpse should be able to hold him back. The Sky-Devouring Corpse had already recovered a substantial amount of power after being repaired by the Nine-Tailed Spirit Fox. Although it would be difficult for it to defeat a Samsara stage expert, that Heaven Dragon Demon Commander will also be unable to completely defeat the Sky-Devouring Corpse given its unique properties. Big Brother is indeed amazing. Little Flame grinned. His grin contained a simple and honest feeling from years ago. We could save ourselves such trouble if little Martin was here. I wonder how that fellow is doing now. Lin Dong stretched his waist and said, "It is most difficult to take advantage of second brother. He is likely better off than us." Little Flame scratched his head. Even though he was now a commander, he was still a little afraid of little Martin. This was not actual fear. Rather, it was because little Martin was the one who guided Little Flame's training back then, and it was likely that there had been many embarrassing black-face moments and reprimanding involved. Little Flame glanced at the smiling Lin Dong when he thought of this. He still felt that Big Brother was still the strongest. This was because even second brother, who was the most difficult to take advantage of, frequently appeared quite helpless in front of Lin Dong. You should take care of Deep Lightning Mountain during this period of time. Lin Dong stood up and directly walked out of the hall. Little Flame nodded. He was aware that Lin Dong had been bitterly training his mental energy during this period of time. Hence, Lin Dong should not be troubled by the matters of Deep Lightning Mountain. The ancient divine item treasury would open soon, and at that time, the Beast War region would turn crazy because of it. Lin Dong clearly needed to try his best to raise his strength during this period of time. Otherwise, the pressure he will face will be even greater. If one was careless in this Beast War region, one would be devoured until nothing remained. All of one's previous accomplishments would vanish in an instant. Bang! For rays of light crossed each other in the vast hall while formidable mental energy swept apart like a storm as 4 figures flashed past. A skinny figure landed on the ground as 3 cracks appeared on his shoulder. Evidently, they were 3 rather large wounds. However, such pain was no longer felt by the current him. All he did was turn his head slightly. 3 light figures were behind him. They suddenly jolted before exploding into specks of light that filled the sky with a bang. Not bad. Yang's voice transmitted over through the air as he looked at Lin Dong below. Finally, he smiled and said, "You are already able to defeat 3 human-rank doppelgangers. This is much stronger than when you first stepped into this place." "Only 3, huh?" Lin Dong's eyes looked at the tightly shut stone door located at the end of the hall as he helplessly shook his head. Lin Dong had been training in the endless divine prison during this period of time, and his mental energy continuously improved. According to what Yang had said, once he was able to defeat an Earth-ranked doppelganger, his mental energy would be equivalent to the peak advanced divine symbol master. However, in order to obtain the qualifications to challenge an Earth-ranked doppelganger, one must defeat 10 human-ranked doppelgangers together. Clearly, Lin Dong was still rather far from that level. Do not be overambitious. This is already quite fast, Yan laughed. How long did the Ice Master take to beat 10 human-ranked doppelgangers together back then? Lin Dong asked. About a month. Yang thought for a moment and said. Lin Dong was speechless. He had only reached the level of beating 3 doppelgangers after 1 month. That Ice Master, she was indeed abnormally strong. Why must you insist on comparing yourself with the Ice Master? Yang suddenly asked. Lin Dong's expression froze, but he did not reply. Is it because that little girlfriend of yours is the Ice Master's reincarnation? You seem to be a little afraid of this. Yang's eyes seemed to be able to penetrate one's heart. Lin Dong lifted his head and deeply inhaled a breath of air, before he spoke in a faint voice. I'm afraid that she will turn into someone I do not wish to see because she has to carry such a heavy burden. If it is possible, I will carry that burden. He did not want that lovely and cute young lady from back then to lose the smile which he liked to see because of this so-called reincarnation. He also did not wish for those around him to change. If it was possible, he did not mind standing in front of that young lady and protect her from all the troubles of the outside world, just like how his skinny back that could seemingly support the sky had stood in front of her when the young lady was trying to stop those powerful enemies back then. Yang looked at Lin Dong. He pursed his lips and softly said, therefore, you wish to surpass the previous Ice Master in all aspects. You should be aware that this is quite difficult. Moreover, due to reincarnation, no one can truly know how that little girlfriend of yours will turn out. Lin Dong slowly nodded. Soon after, he lifted his head and smiled. Hence, I wish to surpass her, although it is difficult. You should also know that I am extremely stubborn. Let's continue training. Lin Dong stood up once again after speaking. His calm eyes looked towards Yang. Yang could only helplessly nod his head and wave his sleeve upon seeing this. This time around, 4 human-ranked doppelgangers slowly appeared and a cruel fight started once again in the hall. While Lin Dong was training in this crazy fashion, 1 month stealthily passed by in a flash. This video will end here.